you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to give you some instructions to follow to help you fall asleep. So, I had the idea to do a video like this, which would be more sort of puzzle or game focused. And then I discovered that there is an ASMR artist called ASMR Eliza who does a similar style of video. And so I do recommend her videos if you do like this one. All of these activities can be done with your eyes closed. So let me know what you think and let's get started. So think of a prime number that is lower than 10. Great. What's a prime number that is higher than 10? Okay. Now take those two numbers and multiply them together. If the second number is really high, you can just add them together. But I'm impressed that you knew a very high prime number. Okay, let's move away from the math. What's a job that begins with the letter B? Maybe you said baker or basketball player. If you listen to this video more than once, thank you. You can try to remember my answers, or you can list something that you didn't say before and that I didn't say. Okay. What's a job that begins with the letter C? Maybe you said carpenter or cashier. Let's skip ahead to the letter M. What jobs can you think of that start with M? Maybe you said mail carrier, or to be a little more exciting, maybe even magician. Now think of one of your favorite movies or books. What's the first word in the title? If the is the first word, what's the second word in the title? What's the last word in the title? Okay, can you think of another piece of media that contains one of those words? Okay, now think about that new title. Take a different word in that title. What's another piece of media that contains that word? Now go back to the first one that you mentioned as your favorite movie or book. What's something that you would describe as similar to your favorite? Now think of something that's very different from both of those. what's something that's very similar to that thing that's different from your favorite? Okay, now think of another language that you know and count down from 10 in that language in a moment. If you don't know any other languages, just try to think of some words that we use in English that are borrowed from other languages. Now think about the words 1 through 10 in English and how they're spelled. What letter do you think is most common across all of those words? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I did figure this out, and the most common letter in those words is E. Okay, let's think of something that commonly comes in a set of 12 or a dozen. Maybe you said eggs, or donuts, or roses. Now, just for fun, let's test your psychic ability, or your memory if you've listened to this before. So, try to guess what color I'm gonna say next. There might be repeats. I won't do anything super specific like lavender. I would just say purple instead. Okay, ready? First is blue. Yellow. Yellow. Pink. Purple. Green. Red. Blue. Now let's think of a pair of homophones. Those are two words that sound the same but have different meanings. So maybe you thought of moose, which is an animal, and mousse, which is a chocolatey dessert. Whatever your words were, pick one of those words. What's a synonym of that word? If it's something like an animal, you can just think of a related word. Now, what is an antonym of that original word? Again, if it's a word that doesn't have an antonym, you can just think of something that is very different from it. Now, think back to a room that you slept in growing up. What did the comforter or blanket look like in that room? What was something that was hanging on the walls? Now let's brainstorm some names. What do you think would be a good name for an all-black cat? What about an all-white cat? What about a cat with really big pointy ears? What about a hairless cat? What common human name would you give to a pet dog? What's an outlandish name you would give to a pet dog? Okay, let's do this one more time, but with slightly different numbers and letters and so forth. Okay, ready? One more time through. What are three numbers that add up to 42? Now, what's a different set of three numbers that also adds up to 42? Think of an even number lower than 10. Now think of an odd number that is greater than 10. What do you get when you multiply them together? What is a job that begins with the letter G? Maybe you said geologist. What's a job that begins with the letter H? Maybe you said hospital worker, or housewife, or house husband. a job that begins with the letter T? Maybe you said train conductor. This time, think of the movie or book that you saw or read most recently. What's the first word in the title? What's the last word in the title? Can you think of another piece of media that contains one of those words? Now go back to the one that you just saw or read. What's something that is very similar to that book or movie? What's something that is very different? This time when we're counting, let's just count in English, but pick a way that you want to count. For example, you could count by twos and just keep going up until I start talking again. Now think of something that comes in a package with multiple items. About how many items are usually in that package? For example, a deck of playing cards in the US usually has 52 cards. What do you think would happen if the package came with more than that amount? What would happen if it came with less? Okay, one more time with your psychic ability. Try to guess what shape I'm going to say next. Again, I'm gonna keep it pretty simple, so nothing with 23 sides or something. Ready? Square, triangle, circle, hexagon, triangle, circle, square. Now think of a word that is different in two different countries that speak English. For example, bathroom and loo. think back to a room you often ate in growing up. What kind of dishes or silverware did you use? What was on the walls of that room? Okay, let's go back to our names. What do you think would be a good name for a giant, shaggy, gray dog? What about a small white dog like a poodle? What about a dog with really big pointy ears? What about a dog with one pointy ear that stands up and one that flops over? What common human name would you give to a cat? What is an outlandish name you would give to a pet cat? That's it for this video. Let me know what kinds of activities you might like in a future one, or what you liked or disliked here. Thanks so much for listening.